It's 3 a.m. You're wide awake. Your phone is dark, your room is quiet, and your first thought is that something is wrong with you. But the real answer is far stranger. For most of human history, waking up in the middle of the night wasn't a malfunction, it was the plan. Your ancestors didn't sleep the way you do. They didn't collapse for 8 straight hours and expect to rise like a light switch flipping on. They slept in 2 pieces: a first sleep, a gap of quiet wakefulness in the dark, and then a second sleep, carrying them to dawn. This isn't speculation, it's history, hiding in plain sight. The historian Roger Ekirch spent over a decade combing through diaries, court records, medical texts, and literature from pre-industrial Europe. He kept finding the same phrase over and over in documents centuries apart. First sleep, then a gap, then second sleep. People used these terms the way you'd say morning or afternoon. Ordinary, expected. Nobody explained them because nobody needed to. What happened in that gap between sleeps? Not panic, not scrolling, not staring at a ceiling wondering if tomorrow would be ruined. People prayed. They talked quietly with a partner. They tended a low fire. Some got up and visited neighbors who were also awake, because the whole household, sometimes the whole village, moved through the night together. Ekirch found records describing this middle hour as a time for reflection, even intimacy. One period, calm and dark and unhurried, sitting right in the center of the night, like a held breath.
Then came the second sleep, and morning arrived without alarm clocks, without dread, without a body that felt broken. So why don't you sleep like this now? Light. Before gas lamps, before electric bulbs, before the glow of a screen inches from your face, night meant almost total darkness. And in that darkness, something happened in the body that modern life rarely allows. In the early 1990s, the psychiatrist Thomas Ware ran an experiment that would end up proving Ekirch's historical discovery in a laboratory. He took a group of volunteers and extended their nights artificially. Instead of the usual 8 hours of darkness modern humans get, he gave them 14 hours of darkness a night for a full month.
No screens, no lamps, just darkness, the way it existed for nearly all of human history. Within weeks, something ancient reemerged. The volunteers stopped sleeping in one solid block. They split, naturally, into 2 distinct sleep periods, separated by 1 to 3 hours of quiet, calm wakefulness in the middle of the night. Exactly what Ekirch had found in centuries-old diaries. Exactly what your body seems built to do when you finally give it enough dark.
Your body hadn't forgotten how to do this. It had simply never been given the chance. Here's the part that reframes everything. You've probably felt that 3 a.m. wakefulness and assumed it meant insomnia, a problem, a failure of rest. But researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer groups, communities like the Hadza in Tanzania and the San in Namibia, groups whose environment resembles the one your ancestors evolved in, found something the biologist Jerome Siegel didn't expect. These groups, living without electricity, without screens, without modern sleep pressure, don't always sleep in one unbroken block either. Their nights are more flexible than the rigid 8-hour model industrial society treats as the only correct way to rest. Some nights, brief wakeful periods appear in the middle, much like Ekirch's historical record describes. Sleep, for most of human existence, was never meant to be a straight, uninterrupted line. Your ancestors' nights breathed. They expanded and contracted with the seasons, with the amount of darkness available, with the rhythms of the group around them. Winter nights were long, so sleep unfolded slowly in 2 unhurried movements. Summer nights were short, so sleep compressed into something closer to what you'd recognize today. Compare that to your night now. You lie down in a room lit by a phone screen minutes before your eyes close. Blue light convinces your brain it's still daytime. Your body suppresses melatonin, delaying the very process that would ease you into rest. Then you demand one unbroken block of sleep, timed precisely to an alarm. And if you wake at 3 a.m., you call it a disorder. But that gap of wakefulness, the one that sends people reaching for their phones or spiraling into anxious thoughts about tomorrow, is the same gap your ancestors used for something else entirely. Stillness, low conversation, a quiet mind resting in the dark without demanding sleep return immediately. The problem was never waking up at 3 a.m. The problem is what happens after. Eckert's research suggests the segmented sleep pattern began disappearing in the late 1600s and accelerated through the Industrial Revolution as artificial light spread and factory schedules demanded rigid single blocks of rest. Within a few generations, an entire pattern of nighttime life, one that had likely existed for most of human history, simply vanished from memory. By the 20th century, doctors began treating the very thing Eckert found in centuries of diaries, waking in the night, as a medical complaint. You inherited that framing, not because your body is wrong, because the story about what counts as normal sleep changed underneath you, and nobody told you it had. So tonight, when you wake at 3 a.m. and your mind starts racing toward panic about lost rest, consider this instead. You are not broken. You are remembering something your body has always known, something Ware recreated in a darkened room, and something Eckert found buried in 400-year-old letters. A rhythm older than clocks, older than electric light, older than the idea that a single unbroken block of sleep is the only right way to rest. Your ancestors would have called this hour familiar, not a disorder, not a failure. Just the quiet space between two sleeps, waiting, as it always has, for you to notice it again.